Welcome to this explainer. I'm going to be putting on my lab coat today as your resident halachic food scientist. We're diving straight into an incredibly precise intersection of food science and ancient legal theory. We are conducting a strict, text-based analysis of a really fascinating Talmudic case study. We'll examine a highly specific reconstituted liquid and figure out exactly how early legal minds attempted to classify it. Here is the agenda for today's briefing. We'll start with the specimen, move into the investigation, tackle the fundamental dispute, and finally wrap up with the resolution.
All right, Section 1, the specimen, defining the reconstituted liquid. Before we can unpack the law, we've got to understand the chemistry. We are analyzing what the text specifically calls a grape residue beverage. Think of this as a secondary extraction. The primary grape juice, that's already been pressed and taken away. What we're left with are the depleted byproducts, the skins, the seeds, the stalks. This beverage is created by taking ordinary, plain water, pouring it over that leftover matter, and just letting it steep. And this brings us right to our core scientific and legal puzzle. How exactly does the law classify a liquid that starts its life as just plain water, but through this steeping process acquires the unmistakable sensory profile of wine? Is it still the water that originally went in, or has it essentially become the wine that it now tastes like? Moving right along to Section 2, the investigation, tracing the textual authorship. The Gemara kicks off a remarkably precise investigation with one simple question. Whose opinion is expressed in the Mishnah? Basically, there's a baseline ruling regarding this grape residue beverage, and the legal analysts are attempting to reverse engineer the text. They want to discover exactly which legal authority authored this foundational classification. Now, to solve this mystery, these analysts don't just guess. Instead, they perform this brilliant intertextual comparison. They cross-reference our baseline text with another foundational ruling from tractate Masrat. And that ruling is key because it details the exact preparation and the subsequent legal debates surrounding this exact same liquid. This ruling from Masrat establishes a rigorous, honestly almost laboratory-like control case. Here is the process. First, you pour a specific, carefully measured volume of water over those grape byproducts. Second, you extract the liquid after it steeps. Third, and this is absolutely crucial, you confirm that the final volume you extract perfectly equals the initial water input. By ensuring the volume hasn't increased even a single drop, the analysts scientifically proved that absolutely no actual volume of grape juice was added to the water from the residue. It's exactly the same amount of water you started with. That takes us to Section 3, the fundamental dispute, physical source material versus sensory properties. This perfectly measured extraction sets up a massive clash of legal paradigms. It's really about two distinct ways to define reality. Think about it. Do we classify this liquid based on its physical source material, meaning we know purely from a strict volume perspective that it's just pure water? Or do we classify it based on its newly acquired sensory properties? In other words, your human palate is telling you it's wine. Which one wins? The rabbis take a strict physical chemistry approach. They state that even though the liquid tastes like wine, physical reality dictates there is nothing in it but water. Because agricultural tithes only apply to actual agricultural produce, like true wine, and absolutely not to water, the legal result is that this beverage is completely exempt from tithes. For the rabbis, the physical input dictates the law. Case closed. But then we have Rabbi Yehuda, who introduces a completely different standard. He argues that human perception actually overrides physical origin. Notice his logic here. Because the taste is wine, the taste determines that it is legally considered wine. And since it's legally wine, it becomes strictly obligated in agricultural tithes. This illustrates such a brilliant, strict dichotomy. You have the rabbis focusing purely on the physical input. It's water, therefore it's totally exempt from tithes. And then you have Rabbi Yehuda focusing purely on the sensory output. It tastes like wine, therefore it is obligated in tithes. It's a fundamental debate between objective origin and subjective experience. So how do we resolve this standoff? Let's get into Section 4, the resolution. Rav Nachman's chemical catalyst. Enter a senior analyst named Rav Nachman. He determines that this entire legal debate isn't just a simple philosophical argument about water versus taste. It actually hinges on one specific transformative chemical state, fermentation. Fermentation is the metabolic process that produces profound chemical changes in organic substrates, and Rav Nachman identifies this process as the pivotal legal catalyst that triggers the entire dispute.
Look at how Rav Nachman maps this out. Step 1. Water is added to the residue and extracted. But step 2 is the real game changer. The extracted beverage must actually ferment. Rav Nachman rules that it is only in step 3, after fermentation has fully occurred, that the dispute between the Rabbis and Rabbi Yehuda officially activates. If it hasn't fermented yet, the taste is just too weak to even trigger a debate.
Once that liquid has fermented, the battle lines are finally drawn. The rabbis maintain their strict physical stance. Even when fermented, the exact volume proves it's still just water, so it remains totally exempt. Rabbi Yehuda, however, now definitively obligates it in tithes. For him, the chemical process of fermentation completely validates the sensory profile. Its fermented taste undeniably renders it wine in the eyes of the law. This crucial point comes together perfectly when you view it as a matrix. If the grape residue beverage is unfermented, both parties are actually in agreement. It's just water, totally exempt from tithes. But the moment it shifts into a fermented state, the paths diverge. The rabbis still view it as exempt water, whereas Rabbi Yehuda reclassifies it as wine that is absolutely obligated in tithes. So fermentation is the absolute prerequisite for Rabbi Yehuda's sensory-focused law to take effect. And this brings our entire investigation full circle. Remember the original question we started with? Whose opinion is expressed in the Mishnah? Because the baseline text we were investigating specifically treats the fermented grape residue beverage as having the legal status of wine, Rav Nachman proves that it is clearly authored in accordance with Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. The mystery is solved through rigorous chemical and textual analysis. This ancient text is about so much more than just agriculture or beverage preparation. It leaves us with a truly profound question about defining reality itself. Think about it. When you analyze complex mixtures in life, when exactly does the objective chemical origin of a thing yield to the subjective reality of human perception? Thank you for exploring the legal science behind this text with me.